Hey ladies, hey Eve, how are you? God bless you. Today is June 30th, and I just have a very short message today. Have you ever been surprised or just amazed at how some women just keep their houses and they're working full time, they have kids, and but for whatever reason, their house is always immaculate, it's always picked up, it's always clean, it's just always in a great condition. Whether they're expecting you or not expecting you, the house is always cleaned. And it dawned on me that that type of woman is constantly on her house. She doesn't take a break from uh, every time that she passes through a room, she is constantly picking something up. She is constantly wiping something down to the point where she's so hyper focused, not obsessed, but she's so hyper focused on her home that her home is always maintained. And it got me to thinking that in life, if we want to be successful in anything, we have to be hyper focused on it. And the difference between, let me just make this distinction. The difference between being hyper focused and being obsessed is that one pulls you out of your priorities or one pulls you out of balance. For example, if you are hyper focused on your diet, right, on your food consumption, then more than likely that weight target that you're trying to get to, you're going to get to it because you're very focused, you're very intentional. If you are obsessed, it will pull you out of balance. And for example, you might develop something like bulimia or anorexia, or you're just no fun to be around every time that there's a gathering where there's food because you're constantly, everything is about food, 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 and what your diet looks like. So being hyper focused is not a problem. Matter of fact, the most successful people in life are hyper focused. It's the obsession which can also bring you success, but it also pulls you out of balance. So what I want to talk about today is how to be hyper focused. And specifically, this is something that I wish somebody had told to me. Sometimes the secrets of life are these little nuances, are these little things that they're just little words, they're just little nuggets, they're just a tweak in your thinking that it changes the game entirely. One of the assumptions that I had in my mind was that once you get to a certain level, and I think I've spoken about this in different videos, but once you've gotten to a certain level or you've reached a desired effect, that once you've reached that, that's it, that's all you have to do. And I really lived life that way, that once I attained something or once that I got something, whether it was in a relationship or in my career, or whatever, my household, whatever, I had this way of thinking, like, okay, that's gonna stay, now I can move on to something else. And that is such an erroneous assumption. It was one of those unspoken assumptions that I had in the back of my brain that was derailing me. And on this particular channel, I like to talk about things that will help us women in our marriages, in our relationships. And one of the things that I needed to understand was that very much like a hyper focused woman is on her house, is the same way that we need to be hyper focused in this house, this temple, this mind, this heart. And you have to clean this house every single day. Just like the woman who is hyper focused on her house, on her home, there isn't a moment that goes by that she's not picking something up, wiping something down, rearranging and organizing. That woman, it's just now second nature to her. In that same way, we need to be with this temple that God has given us. And part of that temple is really maintaining our minds and our hearts, because everything starts here, okay? The chain of command of manifestation is, it starts here, right? The thought, it drops to your heart, it becomes a desire, and then it's activated by our will, and then we manifest it with our hands. Then we actually go about doing something in the physical, in the natural realm. And so one of the things that I have learned, that I have sometimes I haven't been as hyper focused, and I've allowed myself to get lackadaisical at times, is in my marriage when it comes to communication. So, for example, one of the things that I would do is, we would get on this great communication, we're fine and everything is running great and running smoothly, and I'm doing all of the things that I'm supposed to do, trying to make sure that I'm communicating in a healthy way, trying to express my challenges and frustrations in a healthy way, doing certain things, right, to ensure that that me and my husband are on one accord. But I'm not perfect. This is not a channel of me trying to tell you that I'm perfect, that I've arrived. No, this is just a channel of me trying to say that I have understood that in my own life, when I have reached communication problems with my husband, if I could trace it back, I have failed to do the upkeep, right? The regular maintenance. I have let it go. And one of the things, the analogies that God has given to me is that life is not like a dog, right? A dog, you can say, sit, and it'll sit, stay, and it'll stay. And life is just not like that. That if we want to have success in anything, in any type of arena in our lives, we need to make sure that we're constantly maintaining, that we're constantly doing all of those small little habits that got us to that place, right? That once we've done the big things, once we've done the big clean out, once we've done the organization, once we've done all of those things and we've gotten to the place that we want to get to, that the maintenance is so very important. And I don't know why, as human beings, we really like lose sight of that at times. And my husband and I, for a couple of days, we were just like not meeting eye to eye. We were getting aggravated. We were just like struggling with each other. And you know how the enemy is. Then he starts bombarding your mind, because this is his mission. So I don't want you to feel guilt when the enemy starts bombarding your mind with like thoughts of divorce and like bad feelings of hatred and stuff. Like, the enemy is the enemy. And somebody needs to hear this. When you go through that emotional turmoil, you don't have to take credit for all of that stuff. Okay? The enemy is on his job 24/7, and he's constantly looking for opportunities to bombard you when there are challenges and frustrations in front of you. But what's important for you is that you take every thought captive and bring it down. That's 2 Corinthians. I just wanted to give you the Bible verse for that. That's 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5. That we have to cast down all arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. And that is so important. So I just wanted to like highlight that little part, that when you're bombarded and you feel out of sync with your partner, you feel out of sync, with your spouse, and for whatever reason, you're just like, what did I do? Why am I here? All of those thoughts are from the enemy. What you have to learn is to walk yourself off that cliff and remind yourself, you know what? My husband is my blessing from the Lord. My husband is my blessing. My husband is God's gift to me. And I am a gift to my husband. And you have to start bringing all of those thoughts captive. But the other thing that we need to do, again, remember, everything starts here in the mind. So I wanted to, the Bible verse that you've heard often, but you need to hear it again. So it's Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Every single day, every single moment, we need to be renewing our minds. And that may look like having constant worship in the house. That may be, there was a time in my life, and especially when I was younger and I didn't have as many responsibilities, because sometimes your responsibilities in the adult life will distract you, will often distract you from a certain pattern that you had. When I was a younger woman, when I was single, my life was, just like 24/7, God. I couldn't get enough of God, right? And it was always praise and worship, and I was always reading, and I was always this. And then, certain adult responsibilities come, and you can't spend, all day reading the Word of God, right? You can't spend all day, worshiping. You have to do real life. And all of that is beautiful if you have that time. But what I used to explain to people is that I had, and I believe I still do, I have in my lifestyle a constant ongoing communication with the Lord. That vertical is constantly going. And that is part of renewing your mind. That in every moment you are just, God, you're wiping the counter of your kitchen. You know what? Thank you, Lord. Thank you for this. And there's just this silent background, this hum in your spirit, in your soul, that you are constantly in communication with the Lord. Oh, you're about to go into a business meeting, Lord. Thank you for this opportunity to go into, help me, oh God, to, contain my emotions, help me to be able to articulate what I need to help me to provide value to my team. And it's constant. But that develops only when you have this routine, and you have developed a routine in your life where you're constantly at every opportunity renewing your mind. You have to renew your mind, because everything that manifests in your life started here. It dropped to your heart, and it became a desire before you began to act on it. Not everything that you think about, you act on it. But if you meditate on that thing long enough, if you meditate when the enemy is bombarding you, think about this. When the enemy starts bombarding you with all of these thoughts that you can't stand your husband, and he does this, and he breathes too loud, right? He breathes too loud, he chews too much. Guess what? If you get to that point where you're like his breath, his chewing, all of these little things start to bother you, guess what? Without you realizing, you have allowed yourself to meditate on every little wicked thought that the enemy has given you, right? Because he's there, right? There is just an influence on the outside loving to just plant these things inside your mind. And all they want you to do is just to capture it, take it, dwell on it, meditate on it. Why? Because eventually it will drop to your heart. Eventually those thoughts will turn into hate into your heart. Eventually you'll start speaking, you'll start manifesting those thoughts, right? And so what do we have to do? We really have to renew our minds every single moment. There isn't a time in our life, there isn't a place that's so high that we can get to, that we fail, that we can allow ourselves to fail at renewing our minds. We cannot ever get to a place that is so high, that is so good, that we stop all of the great habits that we develop to get to that place. Because then we come to a place of maintenance. Once you get to the place where you want to go, now you have to maintain. And maintaining, if you're doing it every day, if you're doing it in micro things, it doesn't have to be all of the effort that it took to get there, right? When you're starting from zero and you're building something, you have to do great strides. You have to do great effort, right? You have to put in a lot of exertion. You have to do a lot of things. But once you get to a place, to the place that wherever it is that you want to go, if you got to that place, then all you have to do is maintenance. And maintenance, if you're doing it daily, is not as painful as all of the steps that you had to do when you were starting from zero. And this is the thing that I kind of wanted to really emphasize, because for me, and I'm just talking about me, maybe everything that I'm talking about is kind of like, well, duh, no, no kidding, you have to maintain. But I really thought there were so many times in my life that I was just confounded, that I would get unnecessarily frustrated with, because I would come from this place where I'm in sync, right, in this area of my life. And today I'm kind of focusing on marriage, on with my husband, right? So in this example, it's, in marriage, right? And I would be like, oh wow, this is great. All right, I never have to worry about communication with my husband ever again. All right, that check, that's done, and I can move on to something else. No. As long as we're on this side of life, there's always maintenance. There's always something to do. There's another Bible verse that I wanted to bring out, and it's Proverbs 14 verse 1. And it says, the wise woman builds her house, but the foolish pulls it down with her hands. And I wanted to say that when we fail as wives to renew our minds and to understand that life is organic and it's constantly moving. Life moves. Like, life doesn't stay still. What stays still, if it's still, usually it's dead, right? And I'm speaking very generally here. But life is very organic, and it's constantly moving and shaping and shifting. We're constantly growing. We're constantly evolving. Things are constantly moving. You're shaping, you're growing. Your husband is growing. Your children are growing. They're changing. They're having new experiences every day. And every single day, as we grow, as we change, as we adapt to new situations and new circumstances, it's always going to be necessary. It's always going to be necessary to renew our minds. It's always going to be necessary that we bring these thoughts captives, because sometimes these challenges, they really will challenge our faith. They will challenge our strengths. They will challenge our weaknesses. And if you've gotten to a point in your marriage where now you're out of sync and you're kind of like confused, more than likely one of you, if not the both of you, have failed to do the emotional, the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical maintenance of your relationship. So let me say that again. If you're experiencing a lot of tension, a lot of disconnect, a lot of discord, like unnecessarily, or it's gotten to the point where it's like, why are we arguing about this? Like, why don't we agree on this? You're just confused. More than likely, you have failed, or the both of you have failed to connect, to renew. You have to make sure that you're on the same page every single day, and that looks different for every couple. It might be over dinner, it might be, a weekend getaway here and there, but you have to have this habit of a constant connection, a constant renewal with your partner. And it doesn't have to be any great thing, maybe it's just like, sitting together. Maybe it's you're involved in each other's activities. But that's everything that I really wanted to say. Don't be discouraged if you're in a point where you're kind of like confuddled. You're just like, we are not in sync, and I don't know what to do. And I will just say, make sure that you're reaching out to God. Number one, reach out to God in prayer and ask Him to show you where is it that you have, what is it that you have failed to maintain? What is it maybe perhaps that He has failed to maintain? How can you develop that connection again? And it's okay to be hyper focused as long as you're not upset. You can be hyper focused. If you want a good relationship, guess what? You're gonna have to be hyper focused on that relationship. Hyper focused on your husband. Hyper focused on what it means to be a wife, a biblical wife. Hyper focused on praying for your marriage. Hyper focused on every time that the enemy brings thoughts of tension, of fights, of putting him in his place, of divorce, and all those things, that you have to cast that imagination down. You have to cast that thought down and bring it subject to Christ. No, and remind yourself that you are in a covenant with another person and you are committed for better or for worse. And there are going to be times that there are for worse moments. But if you stick it out, if you invite God every day, if you renew your mind every day, guaranteed the Lord will come through for you. So that's all that I wanted to say. God bless you, ladies. God bless you, Eve. We are renewed by the power and the blood of Jesus Christ. God bless.